Now, if you have not already done so, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. I'll pretend I have mine. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsors, some of whom are with us today. Our bronze sponsor, Alex and the Honorable Cynthia McKinnon. Voting Voices, Michelle Levy, Lori and Richard Walk, and Charlie Williams, our silver sponsors, along with David and Lynn Barrelsman. And our incredible visionary sponsor, Jennifer and Phil Anderson, who have also been responsible for our matching program, and I'd like to announce that we have met the match. So thank you. If I could ask all of our sponsors who are here with us today to stand. Thank you. If any of you are interested in becoming a sponsor, I'd love to chat with you here, or you can email me at vp@lwvoc.org. What an election this has been. Many of us are taking a very deep breath and taking time to reflect on the outcomes, both the disappointments and the victories. And we celebrate the fact that the election was fair, it was secure, and marked by integrity and a huge high voter turnout. That we celebrate. These results speak to the tremendous dedication and work of so many of our members and volunteers here in the League, other volunteers, our elected officials, both locally and nationally, who ensured that every vote counted. And I'd just like to thank everyone who's been a part of this effort and worked so hard to tell you how much we appreciate all that you did. The American people have spoken. And the outcome has certainly made some of the issues that we care deeply about unclear about their future. We're deeply concerned about that. There are many issues that disproportionately affect many people in this room, including health care, women's issues, economic security, equal representation, and gun safety. That being said, we are encouraged by the results of our local election. And I would like to give an opportunity for all of our elected officials and people who are announcing to run for office to please come to my left to the microphone and introduce yourselves with your name, title, and office. I'd also like to ask all of our elected officials to stand to the side until everyone has introduced themselves. We'd like to take a picture of our victories. So if you could please join us at the mic. And to keep things moving quickly, we ask that you hold applause until everyone has done their introductions. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Alicia Payton, Circuit Court Judge-elect, Orange County, Illinois. me. Okay. Let's try that again.
There we go.
Good afternoon. Alicia Payton, Circuit Court Judge-elect, Orange and Osceola Counties.
Good afternoon. My name is Warren Lindsay. I'm a candidate for the Winter Park City Commission. Seat 4 is the seat that's being vacated by Todd Weaver, who's not running for re-election. And I'm also a member of the league. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Vanos. I'm the school board member-elect for District 6 for Orange County Public Schools.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ann Douglas. I am the school board member, District 4 elect for school board. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Castrodental, and I am supervisor-elect of the elections office. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Marty Sullivan, Commissioner for City of Winter Park. Welcome to our event center.
And I'm Ann Copenhaver, Supervisor of the Urban Orlando CDD, which most of us know as Baldwin Park. Thank you.
So everyone who was recently elected or is holding an elected office, if you will join the group on the end there, Carol One Savage is going to pose a picture. Carol, go to it. We want to celebrate this moment. Thank you, thank you. Not with us this morning, but another important member who was elected is Kelly Simrad, of course, Maxwell Frost, Anna Askamani. We celebrate all of our members' victories. Our topic this morning is gun safety. And we are honored to have some important guests in the room to be a part of the panel. We also restarted a bit recently our Gun Safety Committee, and we are following in the steps of Polk County, who has had a lot of success with their committee and city officials. The Polk County Gun Safety Committee has given out 3,000 gun locks. And the Sheriff's Office, they partnered with the Sheriff's Office on a public service announcement. We are fortunate to have with us this morning the Orange County Sheriff, John Mina, and Orange County Tax Collector, Scott Randolph, who will say a few words and share our new public service announcement on safe storage. So I'd like to invite Sheriff Mina and Scott Randolph to please come forward. Thank you.
Every year, criminals steal about 350 firearms from vehicles in Orange County. That's nearly 1 gun a day, guns that often end up being used in violent crimes across our community.
Unsecured firearms can also lead to tragic accidental shootings, especially involving children.
I'm Orange County Sheriff John Mina. Keeping your gun out of sight isn't enough. Responsible gun owners must secure their firearms in a lockbox or safe to protect their loved ones and our community.
And I'm Orange County Tax Collector Scott Randolph. Taking those extra few seconds to secure your firearms can prevent a lifetime of regret.
Don't let your guns fall into the wrong hands. Lock them up every time.
Safe storage of firearms saves lives and makes Orange County safer for everyone.
So good afternoon. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you. Thanks to League of Women Voters to inviting me back once again. So beyond the PSA, the League also wanted me to talk generally about gun safety and issues happening here in Orange County. And thankfully, crime and homicides are down in Orange County. I think that deserves a round of applause. But they also wanted me to mention and talk about the recent shooting that happened downtown in the city of Orlando. 2 people killed and 9 injured. And so when I heard about that shooting in downtown Orlando, it brought me back to a year ago when I wrote an op-ed in the Orlando Sentinel opposing open carry and carrying concealed firearms, or permitless carry. It says, I have patrolled the streets here in Orlando, in Orange County. I've walked the beat in downtown Orlando at the bars and nightclubs, let out at 2 a.m. Anyone who's done the same would tell you that allowing people to carry guns openly or without a permit is a recipe for disaster. So what do I know? I'm the sheriff, right? So because we now have permitless carry because that's what the law has passed last year. The city of Orlando, the Orlando Police Department stopped doing those. They used to do checkpoints to check for people with weapons, but because of that law, they are not doing that anymore. So one of the reasons that Scott and I put out this public safety message was that in Orange County, we have about 400 guns, 400 to 500 guns that are stolen, mostly out of vehicles every single year. 400 to 500 guns, and those are just the ones that are reported. So that 17-year-old who committed those homicides and did that shooting downtown, he can't go into a gun store and buy a gun. So that gun obviously was obtained illegally, probably stolen from someone from a vehicle. So we can't stress that enough. The sheriff's office and my deputies, we seize and arrest people with about 500 guns every single year. But thankfully, because of that work, and because of the work of community members calling us when they see something that's suspicious, we're able to get a number of those people off the streets and behind bars where they belong. But I know the questions arise. Well, shouldn't there be penalties for people who are negligent and leave their guns in their cars? And that's a bigger discussion. But I will tell you that that person still is a victim of a crime. And the other more important reason is we don't want to give penalties for that. Is then that will cause people not to report it to us, right? Or, hey, I'll call the police and they're going to come give me a fine because I was negligent and left my gun in my car. So we want them to report that gun stolen so that when we catch the bad guy with that gun, since we no longer can arrest them for carrying it without a permit, we can arrest them if that gun is stolen. So lock up your firearms, report them if they are stolen. We have also done the gun lock program, and I know we have some coming up in the near future. And I'll turn it over to Scott this time.
Thank you, Sheriff. And thank you, Sheriff Mina, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for restarting the committee and continuing this important initiative, and thanks for letting me be a part of it. Obviously, as Sheriff Mina mentioned last year, or was it the year before, they already started permitless carry. The tax collector's offices around the states, a lot of them do concealed weapons permit licensing. I do not. In fact, I'm probably the only big county that does not do that, but I do know from my colleagues, right, once permitless carry passes, they've already seen about a 25% reduction in people who are even seeking concealed weapons permit licenses. That doesn't mean guns are obviously being reduced. It's just that number of people no longer feel the need to carry that license. And the reason of that is because as states pass these laws and they become reciprocity, it used to be that when there were only a few states that had those laws, they'd often still keep that license for travel purposes. But now that pretty much the entire Southeast has become permitless carry, I anticipate that we'll continue to see the decline in the number of people that choose to even carry that license. So, in addition, as a father of a 7th grader, locking up and gun safety is imperative to me. I certainly hear it from my daughter, about how scared she is at school and how worried about that. But certainly, and this is a reminder for every parent, don't be afraid to ask. We ask that question every time she goes to somebody's house. Do you have firearms? And if you do you keep them locked up in a safe manner? And we've never had anybody, even a couple of weeks ago when she went to the play date with somebody who had a lot of yard signs that I couldn't stomach, but nonetheless, even they were appreciative of that question. And I think you'll find that responsible adults are appreciative of that question, whether they like to have firearms or not. And so, again, I appreciate it, and I appreciate looking forward. I look forward to working with the league. I know we've discussed about having these safety locks at our offices, and as soon as we get some, we will start that initiative, and we look forward to doing that in the new year. So thank you.
Some great tips there. We're going to dive directly into the program. We have a lot of important information to cover and some wonderful speakers. I'd like to start by introducing our moderator, Patty Brigham, who is very well known to many of us. She was a tremendous leader, not only in the Orange County League, but in Florida. And she has made many incredible contributions. She grew up here in Orlando and earned her BA and MA from UCF. Go Gators. Go Knights. I'm calling on myself. Go Terriers. Okay. After several years at We Care, Inc., a suicide prevention and crisis intervention center, she forged a career in radio and worked as a reporter, writer, and producer. Patty served on the board of directors when she joined the League of Women Voters of Orange County in 2013, and there she formed, I think, our first gun safety action team, which later went statewide. In the days following the 2016 mass shooting at the Pulse nightclub, she co-founded the Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence with more than 100 local organizational partners. Patty has been the president of the League of Women Voters of Florida for 3 years, starting in 2018, and in 2020, she served in the first year of Orange County's Citizen Safety Task Force. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to our very own Patty Brigham.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, and thank you for such a warm welcome. It's great to be back in my home league and see so many familiar faces and talk about, endlessly we talk about gun safety and gun violence prevention, topics that never seem to go away, and we continue to work on them, which is a very good thing. So I would like to introduce the panel today. Each panelist will take their place at the podium as they are called. Abraham Abe Morris serves as the Children, Youth, and Families Division Manager for the City of Orlando, overseeing social impact program for children and families. His leadership in the community violence intervention model has significantly reduced gun violence and criminal justice involvement. Abe earned his undergrad degree in psychology and human development from the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay, graduating summa cum laude. He furthered his education with a master's in public policy from Loyola University in Chicago, where he graduated with honors. Let's welcome him. Next up, and if I mispronounce your last name, please forgive me, Ruben Saldana was nominated this year as a finalist for Central Floridian of the Year by the Orlando Sentinel. He's also a leader of Central Florida's Credible Messenger program and runs RU camps and Gloves Up, Guns Down, boxing and martial arts training. A former gang leader who served 19 years in prison, Saldana says he understands his kids because he has been in their shoes. Please give him a big, big welcome. Dr. Shanton Barton Stubbs is a professional consultant, a licensed therapist, a certified success life coach, a motivational speaker, and the founder of Under Construction Empowerment Services, and the founder and director of New Image Youth Center in Orlando, Florida. She received her undergrad degree in criminal justice, a master's degree in mental health, and in 2015 earned her doctorate in theology with an emphasis in leadership studies. Shanta has authored 3 books, There Is Good in My Hood, Yes, God, I'm Listening, and co-authored the international bestseller, Discover Your Destiny, Live Your Dream, Love Your Life. Her new book, Knocking Out Excuses, is soon to be published. Let's welcome her. Okay, so we're going to have a timekeeper, and I'm going to try to get under this chair. And so please, where are the timekeeper, please? Okay, thank you. So I'd like to start with each of you and kind of go down the line here. Let's start actually with Dr. Barton Stubbs. Please tell us a little bit about your work with at-risk children and youth and what you've been trying to achieve.
Yes, so I'm the founder and the executive director of the New Image Youth Center, aka The Good in the Hood. And it is our goal at New Image Youth Center to provide safe spaces for youth, not only in the Paramore community, but also with our on-the-go activity program in neighborhoods such as Oak Ridge, Holden Heights, Mercy Drive, and recently Pine Hills. So by profession, I am a licensed therapist, and I create fun and creative ways of being able to teach everyday interventions to youth so that they'll know how to use them when they need them the most.
Thank you. And your seatmate, let's see, is that, I'm sorry, Rue? Okay. Still learning the names. Okay. Go ahead. Tell us about your service and some of your accomplishments with your organization.
I guess our most recent accomplishment is we came back 2 weeks ago from Romania in the ancient Olympic sport of pancration. Mom is right there if you'll raise your hand. Her 15-year-old son, who was part of our Gloves Up, Guns Down initiative, came back with gold here to Orange County, right? That is not an easy feat. He had to fight 5 times before coming back with that, right? No headshots for our kids. For those of y'all wondering if I'm taking our kids all the way to other countries to get their brains rattled up, it wasn't like that. Really quick, been doing this work almost 11 years now in Chicago, Compton, LA, here in Paramore, Oak Ridge, OBT, Americana, Texas, Mercy Drive, Miami, all 5 boroughs of New York City. I don't know if I mentioned LA already. Africa, Colombia, and this is all within the past 2 years, but I've been doing it for 11. Thousands of kids in the most high crime areas, not a single arrest under our watch. I think that's the biggest thing that I could tout. Not a single. And that includes our numerous mentors. And you already seen I did 19 years in prison, right? So there's many of us who actually have demonstrated enough change to be good mentors to these children.
Thank you. Next, Ruben, if you could, not Ruben, I'm sorry, we are now at Abe. I'll get you all right, don't worry. Abe, please tell us a little bit about your work and your successes.
Hello everyone, how's everyone doing? Good. My name is Abe Morris. I'm the Children, Youth, and Families Division Manager with the City of Orlando. The City of Orlando has developed a 3-pronged approach to address youth and young individuals who are at risk of violence, particularly when it comes to gun violence or gang violence, group violence. The first approach was in our school-based intervention program, which is overseen by Bobby Belden, who's actually in the audience today. We take a very targeted approach when working with individuals. So we looked at the school-to-prison pipeline. I hope you guys know what the school-to-prison pipeline is, but by the age of 3rd grade, you can predict if an individual is going to be arrested by 18 based off their behaviors and their grades in their school. So instead of just watching these individuals fall through the cracks and end up in the juvenile justice system, we reach out to school administration and say, give me the individuals that you believe are going to be suspended or expelled by the end of the year, and we're going to provide 5 days a week mentorship to those individuals every single day to make sure that they can stay in school, get the education they need to be successful. We do that in our middle schools and high school space. Our second tier is our diversion program. It's going to be working with those individuals coming out of the juvenile justice system. So as they fall deeper into the system, we want to work with them at that second tier. And our last tier is our community violence intervention program, which is run by an organization called Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. The statistics show that less than 1%, about 0.001%, of a population is at the greatest risk of contributing to gun violence. So therefore, if you can work with that small group of individuals on a consistent basis, you can drastically reduce gun violence across a given location. And since starting the program about 2 years ago, and this is not just our program, you got Ruben's program, you got Dr. Stubbs' program in there, you got police that are involved as well. In the city of Orlando, we've seen a reduction in shootings by 47%, gunshot wounds by 46%, and homicides by 40%.
Thank you. Way to go. Dr. Stubbs, I want to throw this one to you because I know you have some experience as a therapist in mental health. And one of the questions that we often ask is, why do these things happen? And they're obviously it's like a combination platter, right? So could you tell me a little bit about some of the conditions that lead to gun violence? For example, economic conditions, family dysfunction, mental health?
Yes. So first, let me share. When I originally started New Image Youth Center, it was never a goal to know that I was going to be involved in the magnitude of dealing with gun violence. So we've been around for the last 20 years, but it was the last 8 years that I've actually become a part of seeing gun violence take place with our students and within our family units. And so one of the things that we can see, Abe kind of shared this a little bit earlier, is at a very early age, you're starting to see some of the traits of some of this criminal behavior happening. It may not necessarily be the child, but it's their environment. It's the environment they're being raised in. It's the poverty level that they're living in. A lot of these kids, it's not the fact that they want to be in trouble, but they're really trying to survive. And we hear that and we say it and we kind of take it lightly at times, but they're really in survival mode. A lot of the things that I said I wanted to share today was just going to be very open and candid. We have some students who are now of age, but at the age of 8, 9, 10 years old, they're young men and they're expected to provide for their households. And so how do you provide for your household when you're not even able to get a legal job? And so when you're having siblings in the house and you are the oldest, you go out and you get it any means necessary. And so yes, it is an economic issue. It is not access to mental health. It's not access to enough of resources, or the resources that are available, they have to go through so much red tape to get them so that they don't even ask for the help. And so it's just a time for us to identify. One of the things that I often do is I break the red tape. If you need help, let's find a way to get you the help that you need.
Thank you. Abe, could you talk a little bit about this idea that gun violence is random? Because we're really learning more that it's not random, right? So could you talk a little bit about that, and how we could go about changing the narrative about, oh, gun violence is random, and maybe tie in, and I don't know if this ties in, the shooting that happened in downtown Orlando recently.
So I'm going to talk about it from abroad because I don't want to label just one incident because I think it's larger than just one incident. But I'll talk about it from a broad standpoint. So the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform did a study, and that was along with the CDC, and they found that less than 1% of the population, about 0.01% of the population, was accounting for the majority of homicides and gunshot wounds across a given location. So if you look at the population of the city of Orlando, right, 320,000 individuals, you're really talking about who's contributing to gun violence, 320 people. That's who are contributing the most, right? And so if you can identify that small group of individuals in particular neighborhoods where you saw high rates of gun violence and work with them to get them to turn their lives around, you can drastically reduce gun violence. And that's exactly what we did with the city. And so we got a list from the Orlando Police Department that said, hey, who are individuals that you think are at greatest risk? We reached out to some of our community partners as well. Florida Rights Restoration Coalition kind of took the lead on that standpoint with our Community Violence Intervention Program. They created a list of their own by getting to know the community, and they hired on individuals with previous lived experience who come from that lifestyle, grew up in those particular neighborhoods, and they came up with a list. Internally, we found that about 95% of the people matched the same list as OPD. What does that tell us? We're working with the right individuals, right? And then we were able to look at data over time. I'm getting caught up on time, so I don't want to run too far. But we looked at that data and we looked closely, and based off of some of the results that I'll talk about later, we knew if we could work with this small group of individuals consistently, we can make our community safer. So this whole idea that gun violence is random, or if gun violence is not targeted, that's a false narrative. Most gun violence is retaliatory in nature when it comes to group or gang violence.
Let me follow up there. I'm glad that we're talking about these smaller acts of violence, because the attention is usually focused on the big mass shootings, Pulse, at the schools, Columbine, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. Those shootings, some targeted, some angry students going back to take revenge or whatever. So when you say that this type of violence is not random, could you elaborate a little bit more?
So gang violence is not, it's between two rival groups that are going back and forth with each other and over again. And statistics would also show that for every one shooting that occurs with gang violence, you're likely to have 4 more that happen right afterwards. That came from the CDC as well. And so we also don't believe in one-sided mediation. So how can you tell one side to put their gun down, but then not work on the other side to tell them to put their gun down? So we take from the approaches, we're going to look at rival groups across the city of Orlando, work with both sides to make sure that we can mediate gun violence from a two-sided approach. Because let's just say, right, I'm working with one group and I tell that group to put their guns down and say they're good, they're not committing any acts of gun violence, but then things go on social media, people get heated, someone goes and shoots. And now the group is saying, well, you told me to put the guns down, you told me you're going to mediate, and now I'm dealing with this, and I was unprepared for what happened, and I could have possibly lost someone that I love. And so from that standpoint, we really look at it from a multi-pronged approach that you have to work with multiple groups who are involved with gun violence to address it and drive that violence down.
Thank you. We're living in an age of misinformation and disinformation, so I'd like to direct this question to you, Ruben. What are some of the misconceptions that you face when trying to help teenagers find a new path forward?
I don't think there's any misconception to what we do, whether it's from the supporters or the actual children we work with. It's just trying to convince them to change the narrative. There's no misconceptions. It's very simple math. You do this, you'll end up telling my story 20, 30 years later. But if you do this, you can end up like such and such, or John Mina, or such and such, or Abe, right? Or Miss Shantae, right? Successful people who understood the neighborhoods, but didn't go the route I went, right? So there's no misconceptions. The biggest misconception, I would say, if I could throw this out here, something you'll probably never hear and never heard concerning gun violence is all of our girls from the age of 11 to 17 that have openly asked us, we don't have a criteria form where we say, hey, have you ever been molested or whatever. When they do talk to us mentors, right, every single one of them, and I mean every, white, black, Latino, have all been molested, right? 1. 2, it wasn't by the creepy uncle. It was by a woman. This is what we're finding out. This is new to me, right? And so I'm spreading this to you. And what does this have to do with gun violence, right? A lot of these kids are impressing these girls. If we can get the narrative in the girls first, right? Like the old saying, there's a lot of old school in here, right? Men are the head of the household, right? But women are the neck, and the neck controls the head, right? That still applies to our girls and boys. These boys, a lot of them are toting because 1, they're scared. Same reason why I did. And 2, because they want to impress the girl. So if we can get them, the girl to say, put that gun, that's stupid, you're going to go away forever, like such and such and such and such, why don't you get some boxing gloves on, or let's go read, or let's go hang out at the park. Then we can start changing the narratives of the boys through those girls. And my time's about up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Dr. Stubbs, do you have anything you'd like to add to changing the narrative around gun violence?
What I can add is from personal experiences, identifying that my level of expertise did not mean that I was able to help reduce gun violence right off. I just couldn't do it by myself. And number one, I have never been in the streets. Number two, I understood the kids and what they had been going through because I had been there for 20 years now, but just not necessarily knowing how that worked. I was very sheltered. My mom is here today. I'm a PK kid. And so there are so many things that I did not know. And so being able to partner with those who understood the streets. One of our major partners is Root Camp with Coach with Credible Messengers. We've been able to hire some of our own alumni students who were also in the streets, who are now acting as mentors to the kids who are considered the ones who would be in the most trouble or the ones who are most likely to be gangbangers or whatever the case may be. But it's being able to partner and understanding your niche and being able to bring that together. So now with this partnership, we're able to bring mental health therapy to the ones that Coach is working with. If there's an issue, and just so you know, there's no balance in this work. I can't speak for everybody, but after 20 years, I have still not understood the whole life-work balance thing, okay? Because our phones remain on 24/7. You never know when they're going to need your help, but actually having that attitude to do whatever it takes and partnering with the right people, you're able to get the work done together.
Right. Now, this is really for all of you. Do you see the violence that's happening in our city, the gun violence that's happening among youth? Is this gang-related, or is this individuals at each other, or is it a combination?
I think I'm the biggest challenger in Orange County when everything gets labeled gangs. I was talking with the sister right there. The label gang comes from, let me give you an example. Right? You know what, I'm not even gonna give the real example. They just sent me into a neighborhood in Winter Garden where there's been firebombs, shootings, gang related, right? Well, I go in and I find out what's really going on. These are cousins going at it. A couple of the cousins happen to be gang members. That doesn't make it a gang related incident. I wish, and I quote this, and even when I talk to the Orange County Sheriff's Office with meanest people, I wish we had a gang problem in Orange County like we did in the 90s when I was growing up here, because I can easily make a phone call to our credible messengers in Chicago from all sides of the gate, our Crips and Bloods in Compton and LA from both. As a matter of fact, Miss Shantae had a kid, came there with the rags on, right? It wasn't her kids. They were in the neighborhood. In all honesty, they weren't her New Image Youth Center kids, but she shows love to the whole neighborhood. And I was like, oh, next week we got the oldest living Pyru from Compton coming, and one of the founders' Crip. They're like, a Crip and a Blood together. And then I put them on the phone. You claiming my gang? We don't know you from LA. So it made the kid feel like, damn, I'm really not a Crip or a Blood. It's very easy to solve a gang problem for credible messengers because there's a protocol in organizational gangs. What we're labeling gangs here are really just street neighborhoods or rap groups. This is my experience on all these bad neighborhoods. It's not gangs. Law enforcement, unfortunately, and the prosecutors, 30 seconds left, like to label it gangs sometimes because it can enhance the crime. And I've been there, I've been under that. What would require 15 years automatically becomes 30 because you're labeled a gang member. So I don't think Orange County has a gang problem, and I'll stand on that till I see otherwise.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think that what we've seen from the individuals in the city of Orlando, that there's a group of individuals, is it formalized? So I lived in Chicago. It's not, like what Ruben was saying, it's not formalized gangs. You don't have your Bloods, Crips, GDs, Vice Lords. It's not like that. It's not like what it was in Chicago. But there are groups of individuals that do stick together, and it's neighborhood based, right? There's neighborhoods that separate the two, right? Like Paramore and Holden Heights don't get along that well. Like there are neighborhoods in the city of Orlando that do not get along with each other, and it can cause conflict due to social media. And unfortunately, all it takes is two individuals to get into it, to an innocent victim to be hurt by the acts of one or the other, right? And that's just me being honest in what I've seen in this work over the last 2 years and getting phone calls. Rayshawn's in the crowd over there, getting phone calls from Rayshawn almost every single day about how we're gonna tackle the issue.
Thank you. You all are doing such important community work, which is fantastic, because all of us are asking ourselves these days, what can we do locally? Because Florida has very strict preemption laws on making laws at the local level to do anything to restrict guns. So educating at the local level, like Sheriff Mina and Scott Randolph were just talking about with trigger locks, distributing those. A lot of guns are stolen out of cars. Everything we can do like that, all the better. What other suggestions do you have for parents, for citizens, for ordinary folks, for teachers to try to reduce this problem? Not easy, I know.
I think you can hit it from a couple standpoints. I think like the most individuals I'm working with, they're getting guns from people's cars, right? They call them poking the cars, getting cars. So making sure that your guns are secure is huge. I also think that we also got to look at this like early intervention piece is a huge one. Like we see this coming. Like if you see an individual in their trajectory in life going through it, he maybe gets in trouble at school multiple different times. He gets suspended, right? He stops coming to school, he gets expelled. He's in the streets all the time. We knew this was coming and we didn't do anything to address it. So who's really at fault? Like we can't wait 5 years and be like, oh, well, we looked at this random act. It wasn't random. We saw him going or her going down this path. So I think we need to do a better job as society of identifying people at risk instead of just kicking them to the side and saying, hey, listen, he made his bed, he's laying in it. Well, then we gotta look as a country at what we're looking at, what the consequences of our actions right now. That's what I would have to say.
I also agree with Abe. Early intervention is definitely one of the best responses ever. We have to also just pay attention to those students who are struggling in school at a very early age, looking at those 504s and IUPs. All of this is a part of what we're seeing, and we just have to be able to provide way more resources and bring the resources to them, making them accessible. That's another issue. When we're talking about mental health therapy, Florida is one of the worst states of being able to have access to mental health therapy. Kids can have Medicaid all they want, but they miss one appointment or they don't sign one paper, their Medicaid is now null and void for the next 2 years. And how do they get services if they're not having the Medicaid that they need? Getting basic checkups, making sure that they have eye exams and the things that, all of this is a part of it. What we have to understand is those of us who were raised with parents or were raised in a household that we pretty much had what we need, those are the same things that kids need today. And I share that all the time. It's not a rocket science. What did you need as a child, or what do you had as a child? So that's just kind of where we are, you all. It's not like we have to start from the very beginning or create the wheel. Let's just start with what did you need as a child, or what did you wish you had as a child, and let's make sure we're not putting kids through red tape to be able to receive these basic services.
I agree with Abe 100%, and Ms. Shantae hit it on everywhere I speak, all over the world with this topic. That's what I say. What did you need to become a successful kid? That's exactly, she took it. So I'm not even gonna try to compare it to that, but I will try to hit on two different things. One is we understand the problem, so how do we solve it, right? We're talking about whether gang or not, people are getting hurt with these, that doesn't matter, right? People are getting hurt. How do we stop this? How do we stop the kids when they're young? We need more new image youth centers without the red tape, where staff feels like that is their community center, even if they have a record, because that's their kids there, and they're not being barred from attending that community center because they have a record, right? They love, anybody mess with New Image Youth Center in Paramore is in trouble. I'm serious, they're in trouble, right? Because that is the community center in Paramore for children from a grassroots perspective before the funding came in, right? And I know that has a lot to do with her parents owning the church right there in the neighborhood, or actually next door to it. So I say you can't fix 14 years of trauma and drama with just an after-school 2-hour program. You look on Ms. Shantae's website, you'll see the after-school 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. But that's just when the payroll is happening. When she says 24, you have to go experience it for yourself to understand what I'm saying. Changing their narrative, I'm about to get into 30 seconds. Personally, this is what I tell people and this is what I tell my kids. You can have 100 of those confiscated guns right here and you can have 100 pounds of crack. I don't give a damn if Pablo Escobar himself put it there, the white man, the CIA, the black man, the Latino, I don't care who put it. I have common sense to know not to pick it up. I don't care who, and I know a lot of you legislators, like, we have to teach these kids, don't grab it, don't steal it. That's where it starts, period. Changing the narrative means that, doesn't mean beating around. Hold our kids accountable and responsible, and that starts with the bad parenting that's happening. It's happening. A lot of my people don't like when I talk like this, but it's happening. You think it's cute for your kid to be in the pictures with the guns and throwing gang signs until they're rolled out in the black vehicle. Then it's not cute no more. Thank you.
That was extremely well said, and I would like to ask you in follow-up, Ruben. It sounds like you have had a unique program. Now, you mentioned, we mentioned in your bio that you spent a number of years in prison, right? Did your experience in prison inform the work that you're doing now?
My 19 years in prison started at the age of 16 right here in Orange County. And it made me a monster. It made me worse. In prison, you're a shark or you're a minnow. And it wasn't until the latter years of my sentence, maybe like 4 years left, that I learned to be a dolphin, somebody peaceful that could survive around the sharks after having to commit numerous bloody, violent events to survive in there. Right? I was not letting anybody take my mama's money that she sent me for food. I went in a virgin from the behind. I was going to come out a virgin from the behind, even if it cost me the rest of my life in prison or end up on the death row unit. That's not everybody's perspective. A lot of these so-called tough kids get in there. I mean, maybe talking to you all, I could educate you, but from people that have been there, they already know what I'm saying. A lot of these tough kids go in there, they become the complete opposite of what everybody thought they were. And the so-called wimpy kids become the monsters in there. I was one of those wimpy. Everybody thinks I was just some gun-toting, gang-banging fighter no, that wasn't my experience. I was a skateboarder in Miami, a white boy sport, right? With blacks and other Latinos, and we used to get picked on by the gang. So I eventually became that, which harmed me. But I took it to a whole nother level of loyalty, right? And so no, those experiences, my story is not that kid's story. Forget my 19 years in prison. He don't care about my 19 years in prison. He has his own pains. She has her own horror stories. I just have to listen to him. My story's not that story. That's a misconception because I did all this prison time. Now all the kids are going to love me. No, I take the glory out of that story for some of our brothers coming out of prison and sisters who think that's going to be the glory story. Let's take that glory out of that story and let's focus on these kids and what they do and make them successful like these two.
Okay, great. Well, on that note, let's hear some of your success stories because you wouldn't be here if you didn't have them. So let me see. I'm going to start with Abe. What'd you tell us about? You have a overtime program?
Yes. After this, there's actually a young man in the crowd right now that we wrapped around about 2 years ago who's going to share his story. So I don't want to take too much of his glory before we have that conversation earlier. But he will talk about, his mother having him at a very young age, getting pregnant at 14, having him at 15. Father got arrested at 18 for second-degree murder. And he talks about his family was in the streets. That's all he saw. That's what he grew up seeing. And he actually lost one of his best friends to gun violence not too long ago as well, which impacted the whole Paramore community. And so myself, along with Rayshawn, who's also in the crowd, kind of wrapped around him and others, right? There's multiple people that kind of help support him, but it takes really a village to make this thing work. Like Ruben was saying, and Dr. Bishop Stubbs was saying, that it really takes a village and nonstop work to make sure that these individuals are successful. But now this individual, he's no longer on probation. He has a full-time job, and he's planning on going into the military. So you can see success happen once you pour time, resources, and dedication into these young people. And his success story should not be a fluke. this should be the story for all the individuals we work with, as long as we put in the time, dedication, and give them the necessary tools. People say all the time, like, well, why don't they just pull themselves up from their bootstraps? What happens if they were never born with boots? So we give them the boots, the bootstraps, teach them how to tie the boots, teach them how to walk, and then forth, whatever they need to be successful.
Okay. Doctor, I'm really interested in hearing your success stories. Now, I know you've partnered with a colleague, your colleague next to you, to work on some special programs and initiatives. Could you both tell me about that?
Yes, so actually I partner with the City of Orlando and Root Camp to do the work that we do at New Image. And just to share a real quick success story, so there was this kid that just was full of life, 8 years old, always been full of life, and you can just see in the way that he would laugh, giggle, keep you going. And just always was homeless, hard situations. He was maybe like the 5th child, I think, of 7. And no, he was the 4th child of 7. Struggled through grade school, but always had such a great heart, and you could see that. Mom died unexpectedly at the age of 14, so that sent everything in a whirlwind after, already going through homelessness and so forth for so many years. After that, really got into the streets heavy because that was his support system. That was all he knew, and they were there to answer the call. I mean, after all, he didn't have the support that he always had. Dropped out of school, we got him back in school. I even created a program where we would pay him to go to school. And the reason why I'm sharing this is sometimes you literally have to do whatever it takes. I would pay him to go to school. I would take care of his Uber personally, and we just took him under our arms. Of course, it wasn't enough. Still fell prey to the streets. A year and a half ago, he called me, which we have a very close relationship, whether he's doing good or whether he's doing bad. FaceTime me in tears. He had just been involved in a shooting that he did not inform me that he was also shot in the chest. The girl who was in the car with him did pass away, and it was during that moment that we immediately began to say, what are we going to do? With the help of the City of Orlando and the programs that Abe is talking about, and Coach being there to mentor and be there every step of the way. And shout out to my husband, who is not here, who is a community-focused individual. I don't know if I pulled him in this or not, or if this is what he wanted to do, but I'm so grateful for him as well. But we were able to get him in all kind of wraparound programs, and today he is working full-time. He finished a work-study program that gave him a full-time job. He's FaceTiming me a couple of times a week during lunch break, telling me how work is doing. He has an apartment that the city also assisted with different programs that they have, and this kid is no longer in the street. He doesn't even want to do wrong, and it's so crazy because the times that we're closed, on Saturdays, he's with the younger kids of New Image Youth Center now giving back. That's just so strange to me that how I saw it at 8 years old, but I refused to give up on him. And because of that, not only is he living, but he's taking care of his youngest siblings, but he's also giving back to the community that once gave back to him.
That is awesome. Ruben, would you like to share a success?
I think locally, the success for myself would be that I was living, when I was released 11 years ago from prison, I was living in the good part of town, Waterford Lakes, and then I saw a need in the Oak Ridge OBT area, which didn't have a boxing gym, didn't have an MMA gym, and at that time there was a lot of gang violence. With so-called California gangs, once again, so-called, but don't ever get the so-called mixed up because they have a lot to prove. So they'll be a little more violent than even the structured gangs from major city to prove that they're just as tough as, right? And so I moved in there and I created the only youth crime prevention program to this day in the world, which is duplicated in Africa and several towns in Africa and in Colombia and a couple other places. Where we do gloves up, guns down. We also do breakdancing, we do graffiti, legal graffiti, and animal rescue. And it's in that area, a lot of people don't know, in that area, dependent, we're flirting with Paramore and Mercy Drive and Americana, which is pretty much considered our area, same zip code, but we're number 3 in crime overall, number 1 in poverty. I don't know how that is because I've seen worse looking places. Number 1 for Latina pregnancies. We're predominantly right now a Haitian, Puerto Rican neighborhood, and it's the only safe spot, my backyard. And today after school, the kids will be there. Sometimes there's 5, sometimes there's 50. And we've been running it for 10 years right there. And we've created world champs right out of that backyard. We have a full boxing ring, a full MMA cage. And I think that's a big success story. A lot of people used to laugh at me, say I was a free babysitter for ghetto parents, right? And now all the coaches, right, are like, man, you've brought these kids all over the world and they're winning, man. That's amazing. But what's more important is the ones that don't compete, they're winning in life. And to me, that means everything, right? If it's a 10-year success, I won't be living there forever. I'm kind of getting tired of it, to be honest. And all of you are welcome there. Yeah, the old white people, you're welcome there too. Yeah. Where's Linda at? Linda? Co-chair, can you stand up, please? She's been there to all our other hoods with us, right, Linda? Did anybody pick on you? Did anybody want to get you in the boxing ring or anything? And if I said anything to offend anybody today, I still put the gloves on, so you can meet me over.
Thank you, and thank you, Linda. Let me ask you, the work on gun violence prevention, gun safety, is very personal work. We all of us that get involved as activists have a story. What brought you to this work? And Doctor, I will start with you first.
So, I've never been to prison, don't ever want to go. My goal at the beginning was definitely just to provide an after-school program for youth that has evolved into safe spaces for youth all over Orange County. And so my work started because my parents moved their beautiful church from Winter Park to Paramore, and I was in culture shock, and I thought that they were crazy for doing it. But it was at that time, there were not many programs in the Paramore community for youth. I only had one game of Monopoly. I played that one game of Monopoly with 4 kids who I saw who were playing in the street. And those kids came back the next day asking my dad for me. So New Image Youth Center wasn't something that I always planned to do. It was definitely a need, and it called me, and I just happened to answer the call. And here we are 20 years later, now serving over 300 youth a year with our brick and mortar and on-the-go program, and known as one of the #1 safe havens in Paramore. Grassroots, started from nothing, started with $1,500, and now received $1 million from the Heart of Florida United Way last year. Yay. Yes. To help us purchase our forever home. So I'm just going to plug this in real quick. We are in the middle of a capital campaign project. If you love what you have heard today, please remind yourself you can be a part of the good in the hood as well. But we do welcome volunteers. I thank you everyone for giving us the opportunity to speak. I don't say this publicly, but thank you, Coach, for who you are and what you do and the 24-hour service that you provide at New Image. Thank you, Abe, for coming new to the neighborhood, but listening. So one of the things that Abe did, he was new to the neighborhood. I wasn't sure if I was going to like him. He was still trying to understand everything, but he listened. And I said, Abe, I don't want anyone coming to the neighborhood thinking that they know stuff. And he really took the time to listen. So, we're doing this work together. We're doing it collectively. We can't do it by ourselves. And we want you all to be a part of what we're doing.
Question?
Yes, the question was, what brought you to this work?
It wasn't my 19-year prison sentence. No, really. I got out. I wanted to continue being a professional fighter. And then the words of my sister, who's in the hospital right now in Claremont, were, excuse me, it's all grown adults in here except for Naria, right? She's 16. Your stupid ass is almost 40 years old, still trying to fight. What the hell are you trying to prove to people? You need to train these kids and let them do it. And then I started realizing my body, I was able to throw, but I couldn't receive no more. And, it was just waking up with injuries and taking months to heal. And I said, yeah, you're right. And then when I left, I moved back to Los Angeles, and my sister said, hey, these kids were in gangs doing drugs. The moms are coming by. Where are you at? So when I hung a punching bag in her front yard in Oak Ridge, right off of OBT, the next day we had like over 30, kind of like Ms. Shantae, 4, right? I had 1 I was training, and then 4, and then it became like 30. And she's like, you need to come back. And I felt it was my calling. I felt like all great medicines, the poison should become the cure. I was the poison. I was destructive, right? And I felt like if I can utilize myself as this poison and become a cure, even without funds. I've been doing this work, I told y'all, 11 years. I didn't start getting funded until the Orange County Mayor Citizen Safety Task Force 2 years ago. I've been doing it for free. There's not a lot of workers that I know anywhere in the world that could say that. Everybody, even at that task force, some of y'all were on it, right? $2 million. Now everybody's hiring credible messengers all of a sudden, right? And that's the line of work we do, right? It's credible messenger work. You have to have credibility to bring a message to these neighborhoods. You have to have credibility. And you might think, Coach, I don't look like you. I don't have tattoos and I'm not rough around the edges. That doesn't mean you don't have credibility to talk to these kids. Give them a chance. I watch Ms. Shantae bring old white ladies in there all the time, and they love on that old white lady. I'm serious. I'll be like, wow, how did you do that? Give them a chance. Some of our own people are scared of our own kids. A sad truth that a lot of us don't like to address. Give them a chance. Spend some time with us. And I'm on the stop. And we have flyers before we leave. Naria, if you raise your hand, if you want to get with us personally, my email's on there. I'll send you my personal phone number. We have our flyers. Thank you.
Thank you. And Abe, what brought you to the work of gun violence prevention?
I think it kind of goes back to the early intervention piece. So I was graduating from the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. I was just getting into community work, and you get my first big boy job as a case manager, getting out of school. And when you start in the human services field, when you get like a caseload, they give you a long rap sheet of everything that's gone wrong in that kid's life. And you start reading over this rap sheet, and it gives you an idea of who you're going to meet with. But then you go meet with them, and you take them out in the community, and you go back to their homes, and you sit down with them, and you talk to them, and what is on that rap sheet is not true. That's what got me into the work. Also, another big thing that got into the work is you can't do this work unless you're going to step into the home as well. Ruben talked about this earlier about parenting, and this is a big standpoint for me. Unless you go in to a person's space when they allow you to and truly understand the living dynamics of what they're going through, you're really not going to make change. Because you might work with them for 2, 3, 4 hours in a day. Guess where they're going back to that night? They're going back home. And often those parents are struggling just as bad as the youth are. And so you gotta work with both sides to make sure that you're making an impact. And so often we get called to these community meetings and we talk about it, and I think it's great. But a part of me, when does conversation stop and action take place? And often they'll say, well, we need parents at the table. Why aren't the parents at the table? The parents you're talking about aren't there. They aren't coming. So you have to go get them and get them involved. And if you can buy that parent's trust and that youth's trust, guess what happens? When a crisis happens in the house and things are about to get really ugly, the parent will call you and the youth will call you, both complaining about each other, and you can de-escalate the situation. I'm serious. It happens all the time, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure Bishop Stubbs can talk about it. I'm sure you could talk about it till your face turns blue. It happens all the time, but until we start to get involved with the youth and the parents together, we're not going to see change.
Thank you. You've just given us our call for action. League members like calls for action. So I want to thank all of you, our panel. You've been wonderful guests. And now we are going to take questions from the audience.
Good afternoon. What an incredible panel here. Thank you so much. Thanks for being inspiring and also for giving us the message of what one person can do. And you've each proven that it just takes one person motivated, inspiring people to make a difference, and thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that message. We appreciate it. Any member that would like to ask a question, this is not comments, this is questions, please come up. As long as we have the time, we will. And again, this is my mic, so I'm going to hold it for you.
I'm so used to holding them myself.
We can share.
It's okay. Thank you for coming. Question, and I've always wondered this. My son's 45. He's been playing video games since he's a little kid. What do you think is the influence of violent video games on the kids that go out and use guns, or just on the generation? You know what I'm saying? What is the influence? Can you change the narrative when they go home and they play Call to Duty or whatever I mean, we never saw this stuff when we were growing up.
I will tell you this, in Miami, right before I went to do drive-bys, we weren't playing Barry White with Four Seasons, right? We wanted to listen to violent music. So I think now it's the violent video. I see it with the little kids when we're traveling. Oh, 8 points for hitting that stop sign. Oh, remember? So yeah, get them off of it. The violent games. I'd rather see a kid playing with this, 3 hours at the house than playing with this 3 hours. I know it's a bad, evil on evil type of thing, right? But take them violent video games away. That's my opinion. But Ms. Shantae probably deals with that probably more than myself.
Okay. Michelle? Yes, I would, the first thing I want to say is that I was a social worker for the state for 30 years. I apologize for all the red tape, but it's just, you have to do all of this, you have to check off all the boxes, and I know the delay is awful, so I just apologize for that. But my question really is about gun violence in schools, and you have children now who are bringing weapons to school. And what do you think about holding parents who are not securing these weapons liable for whatever they cause? What is that connection? And I know you're talking about parents and children, and you have to be concerned about the parents because they don't have great lives either. But what do you think about that? About them getting the guns not from unlocked cars, but getting them from their parents?
So I'm very careful when we're referring to school because we are a community-based organization, and sometimes we have to do things differently from what the school requires. So at my organization, one of the things that we are very careful with is checking kids' backpacks. And if we think that there's an issue, we will call someone in, right? I do think that parents at times have to be held liable. If we're hearing today about gun safety, locking up the guns and not having them accessible for youth, we're not talking about the ones that are being stolen, but the ones that are being left out so that they can get them. No, as a gun holder, user, you need to be more liable and more careful with what you have available for the kids in your household. And we've experienced some of that. I've had a kid to have a gun that he literally just got off the kitchen counter because it was there. And so, no, we have to hold parents responsible for their job, and that is their job to make sure their kids are safe, and others.
I think I would like to add to that as well, because I 100% agree. I also think a bigger question is, why does that individual feel like he has to pick up a gun for the first in the first place, right? Of why is that individual feels like he has to take a gun to school? And so we sit down with our boys that we're working with, particularly in the school-based intervention program. 99% of them will say they're scared.
Thank you, Gloria Picard. 1992, James Carville coined the phrase, "Is the economy stupid?" And we've used that in a lot of different ways. When I took over as gun safety chair for Patty Brigham back in 2017, I like to say it's the guns stupid. So I'd like to ask all three of our panelists, what do you want us to do to get so many guns off of our streets? It is, and to us, a huge crisis. And certainly you all are working in the middle of gun violence and how to get ahead of that. But it seems to me we need to be thinking about it's the guns, stupid.
With all due respect, I think that's not realistic. We're in gun-toting Florida. We're not getting rid of the guns no time soon. I'm going to go back to everything I've been saying from the beginning. We have to change the narrative of the kids' mentalities. The guns are available very easily on the streets. You don't even have to steal. You don't even have to break in a car. Just have to have a few dollars. Or a homeboy or a homegirl that just shot somebody and wants to slide it off to somebody else because it has a body on it. It's very easy to obtain gun. We have to change. I know most of you are into the legislation, but remember what this title was. We might not have changed the law through legislation, but we still need to deal with it without the law change. We have to change the mentality of the kid. I see no other way, because it's available, and it's going to continue to be available in this state for a very long time, in my opinion.
So I don't really know the answer to that myself, but I can share. I don't know how my parents did this, meaning my father and my husband and so forth, but when our kids who tote guns come to our block, which is the 200 block, there's times when we've seen them on camera putting their guns away before they get to our block. And that's a testament to them feeling safe in that area, knowing that nothing's going to happen. Again, that has a lot to do with my father and my husband of creating that safe space for them. I don't know if we had much to do with that, but knowing that if you're on this block, there's definitely certain things that are just, we're not going to allow to happen. And so, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe more mentors, maybe assisting them in understanding that there's other ways to remain safe. Again, that's kind of out of my league, but creating more safe spaces is my answer.
I would also have to add to Dr. Stubbs, more mentors for sure. If you want to get guns out of people's hands, you got to get the right individuals to work with these individuals on a consistent basis, right? That has to be done. And just to kind of put it into context, let's look at $100,000 annually. It seems like a lot of money, right? But say you pay someone a decent wage, $50,000 a year, then you put benefits on top of it, and then you have outings and things of that nature for the kids to do, your $100,000 is gone. So for just one mentor to get out there, it's going to cost money to do so, but you also have to look at what's the cost of gun violence, right? Like per injury shooting, $839,000. Per homicide, $896,000. That's just one suspect. You add another suspect to it, $1.5 million. Another suspect, $1.6 million. You look at gun violence across the city of Orlando and across the state, the amount of money, taxpayers' dollars that are going in to gun violence. If we use those funds to do more preventative stuff, your return on investment is tenfold. And that's not even counting the multiple lives you're saving in the process of doing it. So until we start to invest in organizations like these and others who are out there working with these individuals, right, to work with the individuals on the ground, we're not going to see much change. We got to invest to make sure that these organizations have what they need to be successful. Because it's not fair.
Last question. Hi, I'm Wendy Darrow. I'm a retired teacher and mental health counselor, and I'm one of those old white women that volunteer at the New Image Youth Center. I'm going to say one thing and then I'll have my question. I can't remember when I've heard a panel so on target about kids and where the problems begin. None of us have all the answers, but thank you for your wonderful information, all of you. Dr. Shante, one thing, you know, that may not pertain or seem to pertain directly to gun violence, but you have shared, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to share it with the crowd, is getting the kids out of the neighborhood.
Yes, so I'm sure we can all testament to this, and I don't know if anybody do it better than Coach. I mean, he's taking kids to Greece and to Paris and to everywhere, right? So, right, but if anybody want to do something special, we're here. However, what we have seen is giving the kids the opportunity to explore the areas outside of what they know. I'm not a big fan of community schools, but we do have a community school in our community, which means that our children go to one school with the same kids from 4 years old into 8th grade, and then they're transferred to one high school from 9th into 12th. And I fought against that because I remember when my youth used to have the opportunity to attend Howard and have different teachers and different opportunities and better books and all the things that come along. Just getting our youth out of the neighborhood and exposing them to life gives them the ability to begin to dream. Organizations like ours, we begin to help foster those dreams so they're not thinking about being gangbangers or drug dealers or on the corner. They want real jobs because you've exposed them to it. So I remember our first out of the community, one was, I was a college student. I started New Image at 21 years old. I was a college student. It was spring break for me, so I was going to Miami. So instead of going to Miami by myself, I took 25 of our kids. And to this day, I mean, it was probably 15 of us to a room, but to this day, those kids are adults, and they're talking about their first opportunity of being able to leave the community. So again, exposure is everything. You don't have to take them out of the city. Sometimes it's just taking them to, I know PKZ and others do amazing jobs of just giving them the opportunity of knowing what's out there. Remember, if they're boxed in so much, that's all they know. Give them the opportunity to dream, and then help them reach those dreams.
Patty, I'm going to turn it back, or Kathy, I'm going to turn it back to you.
All right. Well, I want to thank our panelists so much. How inspiring. And you can go back to your seats if you'd like. And I'd like to thank our moderator, Patty Brigham. Thank you. Wonderful as always. So I just want to be clear that I told Ruben that he should tell our demographic what we should do, so his comments weren't out of school. So these are really cool people. Don't let the white hair and skin color confuse you. So we have our marching orders, I think. We understand the assignment, as they say. So this tells us a lot about what individuals and communities can accomplish. And when that work spreads from one community to another community, it creates an even greater good in Florida. I urge you to consider attending the Hot Topics Overtime in the library just across the way here. Right afterwards, we're going to talk in more depth about what works and what doesn't as we work to reduce gun violence. Now, we have just a few announcements. First of all, I want to thank our co-chairs, our new co-chairs, Linda Coffin and Fiona Shannon, for re-energizing our Gun Safety Committee. And please see them if you want to get involved. Will you stand? Thank you so much. So please check in with them. Also, you should be recycling your signs, your campaign signs, through November 17th. For your information, in 2022, we collected over 3 tons or more than 6,000 plastic signs for recycling. If you have a Vote 411 or Vote Early sign, those can be reused. So either hold on to them or get them to a voting services member who can store them for us. Speaking of environmental issues, there are clean water petitions on your tables. Please take a moment to fill those out if you haven't yet. This election season, we had 109 volunteers who worked at the polls or delivered food to the polls. 67 poll workers, 42 volunteers bringing them food and drink, many working multiple times in these 6 elections. Will those who were either working the polls or feeding the poll workers please stand to be thanked? Apparently, most of them are still sleeping. We have a lot to do as a league as we move forward, so take a breath, but then check out lwvoc.org, our volunteer page, to see what's next. And complete our survey for this event, because we are always striving to improve and find more ways to make more wonderful programs. We do not have a Hot Topics in December. However, we have 2 opportunities for you. First, we have the Holiday Sip and Shop. Okay, this is December 6th, noon to 5 p.m. The participating shops are on Park Avenue, Winter Park, and you can pick up a little something for our toy drive at the holiday party. Our partner stores sip. And our partner stores are J. McLaughlin, Writer's Block Bookstore, 10,000 Villages, Scott Laurent Collection, and the Spice and Tea Exchange, and lots of chances to see your friends and compare notes. But pick up toys to bring to our holiday party. Our holiday party is taking place on December 11th, 6 to 9 p.m. at the Women's Club of Winter Park. We are having a toy drive to benefit Hope Community Center in Apopka. And it is not too early to sign up, because you know our organizers really love it when we sign up early. It's much easier. So there will be no Hot Topics in December. Did I mention that? Okay. Do you want to know what's going to happen in January for Hot Topics on January 8th? Yeah. So do I. We have not yet discerned what the topic will be in January, but we will be here. So stay tuned and look for your ways to get involved. And thank you so very much for being here today. We are adjourned.